Hello everyone and welcome back once again to the channel. It has been a while since I've made another full flight video, and it turns out Sim Update 5 might have just fixed the problem, which will make this video quite interesting. If you remember, a couple of videos ago I told you guys I would be making a video about Cathay Airport and the very challenging visual approach at that airport that we were going to fly in the DC-6, but instead of that I made my other most recent videos, and it might have seemed that I wasn't keeping my word about the Cathay video, but there was actually a reason why I made other videos first, and that's because before the update there was a bug in the scenery of Cathay that I downloaded from FlightSim.2, and this bug caused the sim to crash every time I tried to load into an aircraft at that airfield. There also wasn't any other free or payware scenery that could match the one that had the bug, so instead of downloading a less suitable scenery package and making the video with that, I decided to wait a while longer until the maker of the scenery released a new version that fixed the problem. As it turns out, we didn't have to wait for the developer cause Sim Update 5 seemed to have fixed the issue, and we can now use the airport again. So in this video, that's what we are going to do. Currently, our DC-6 is parked near the terminal at Hualien Airport in Taiwan. I believe that's how you pronounce it, but be sure to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Very quickly before we begin, like always, be sure to do a touch and go on that subscribe button along with the notification icon so you never miss out on new content. A lot of great things are coming to the channel, like the now delayed Junkers GU52 and the Phoenix Simulations A320 that are due to release in the near future, hopefully. Also, don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it and leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. Now, without any further delay, as this video has been long overdue for quite a while, let's jump straight into the flight deck. So, here we are inside the flight deck of the DC-6. We've all seen it before. Don't mind that weird texture here on the yoke. This livery for some reason isn't fully compatible with the sim yet. Maybe a new version has already been released, but I'm just too lazy to go ahead and download that version right now, so we are just going to have to do it with this today. I've already set the aircraft up for our departure, pretty much, just to save ourselves some time, since it is quite a long flight and I just don't want to waste any time with the startup procedure, as we've seen it a lot of times before. The only thing that I still need to do is set the altimeter, but I can just press V for that, and there we go, both the altimeters will be set. And we are departing from runway 21 today on the Wagon 1B departure. I can show you guys real quickly what this departure looks like. So we are going to climb out our runway heading. Leaving 700 feet, we are going to turn to 130 degrees. And then once we intercept the 168 radial from the Hualien VOR, we are going to intercept that radial to the wagon waypoint. And then from there we are going to continue on our flight plan towards Cathay Airport. And as you can see, I don't have any charts loaded in for Cathay Airport, and that's because according to Navigraph, Cathay doesn't exist anymore, and that would be sort of true, because in real life Cathay indeed does not exist anymore. The airport has completely been deconstructed and it's just now an empty spot in the middle of the city. But yeah, of course, we as flight simmers still like to fly towards to an airport like Cathay, so it would be nice if Navigraph would just give us the appropriate charts, but for some reason that's not the case. So in order to get the charts, you have to actually look it up on the internet, and I found a pretty good PDF file that gives us some nice charts for this airport, so that's what we are going to use today. So if you want to use the same charts and do the same flights that we are going to do today, you can find the link to the charts in the description below. And if I somehow forget to put a link there, you can always just look up Cathay airport charts and you will surely find it. But now, without further ado, let's make our final preparations for our departure. So I've already put in the flight plan and all of that. I've set up everything else. Our cruising altitude is 16,000 feet today. So the last thing we need to do is we can turn on our beacon light, and we can go ahead and close all of the aircraft doors. So once the stairs are retracted, we can go ahead and close the cockpit door as well. There we go. And then we can go to the artificial flight engineer, and he will do his before start checklist.
Completed. Voice recorder. Tasted.
Don't know if you guys can hear it, but the thunder sounds are still quite annoying in this sim. It's quite a surprise to me that they haven't fixed that yet. Because according to the weather report in the sim itself, it would be storming here somehow. But I mean, it's a sunny day right here. And still you can see lightning in it, so that's a bit weird. And I really hope the guys at Asobo Studio or Microsoft fix that in the future. Or at least make the thunder sounds a bit less loud, because they are really obnoxious. And also the lightning flashes are really, really bright sometimes. So yeah, I really hope they fix that.
Removed. 3 on board. Seatbelts and pedals. Adjusted. Throttles.
So the flight engineer will go ahead and set our throttles to the idle position.
Propellers. Forward and 3.
And yeah, I forgot to readjust
Most
my
objects complete.
throttles on my Honeycomb thing, so I didn't think it would affect the throttles in the sim, but it actually did. So hopefully they are still in the right position for startup. But before we start our engines, let's just check if the maintenance is still good. So right now we are in the orange section, so red would be catastrophic, but we are still in yellow, so I'm gonna assume our engines will not break down during our flight. So yeah, let's go down here, set our mixtures to auto rich for our startup sequence, like so. And then control 6 is the overhead panel normally. Ignition can go to the both setting. Everything else is already set by the flight engineer, so we'll go ahead and start engine number 3.
3. 6. 9. 12.
And there we go, good start on engine number 3. Now we will monitor the RPM gauge for a second to see that it doesn't go above 1000 RPM, which it seems it doesn't. And there's a starter cutout. I don't know if you could hear that as well. The engine is stable there. So basically I'm going to skip the rest of the start procedure right here, because you've seen it plenty of times, and if you haven't, you can always watch some of my older videos where I do it more in more detail. So right now I'm just going to fly through this start sequence. No pun intended, by the way. So there we go, now we have 4 good engines. They are all running correctly, so we can now probably reduce the thrust to idle again, like so. And now we can, once the primary and boost switches cut out, we can, there we go, we can turn off the engine selector, turn off the boost pump, and switch to the plain battery, now that the engines are running. And one last thing that I'm going to do for this departure, since I don't really trust the Garmin GPS with departures like this that involve VORs, I'm just going to set the VOR myself, and we are going to try to fly the departure old school. So the frequency is 114.1, like so. And we are supposed to intercept the 168 radial, which is going to be approximately there, I would say. So yeah, that's what we are going to do, because as you can see on the Garmin page here, the flight plan already looks a bit weird to me. So yeah, don't really trust that all that much. So let's just do it this way instead. But yeah, we are now ready for our pushback
Start
and
selecting
taxi.
boost bumps. Off and off. Battery switch.
Can already go ahead and close the window.
Generators and inverters.
Always forgot that in previous
Check and
videos, but now I have the reflex to think about it.
Armed. Ground power. Removed. After start checks complete.
There we go, after start checklist complete, so we can release the parking brake. Yeah, I'm not going to bother with powering back the aircraft, because for some reason when I reverse thrust in this aircraft, it just doesn't want to move, so we are just going to turn the aircraft instead. Try to keep it nice and slow there. So yeah, we are going to taxi towards runway 21, which is in that direction. And we can follow this taxi line right here. Also, something I forgot to mention, if you want to download the scenery for yourself, a link will be in the description, as well. It's the same website where I downloaded the Saitek scenery, which is flightsim.2. A very nice website to get both freeware and payware products. They just released their first payware aircraft, which is a racing aircraft. And I might just do a video about that in the future for the Reno air races, but I'm not sure about that yet. We'll have to see with the release date of the Phoenix A320 and all of that, if I still have the amount of budget to buy another aircraft, which is something I do have to pay attention to.
Locked. Set. Transponder.
So here we are at the threshold of the runway. Let's check for any incoming or outgoing traffic, which there isn't. I have the departure chart on my other monitor here ready to go.
Extended and on. Before takeoff checks complete.
And there we go, our good old reliable flight engineer has finished his before takeoff checklist. Can go ahead and line up on the runway. And as you can see with all of the hangars here, this is a also a military airfield apparently, not only a civilian airfield. There's an entire other runway near the mountains there as well, I think. Yeah, here we go, lined up with runway 21. I'm gonna stop here for a second. And we can request a dry takeoff from the flight engineer.
30 inches stabilize. Stabilized. Cal flaps. Cal flaps. Cal flaps set. Full power, please. Going full power.
And there we go, full power is set.
Full power set.
Airspeed's alive. Rotation speed is at 100 knots. V1. Rotate.
Pause for 8, gear up. Gear selected up.
Start trimming the aircraft out here for a nice gradual climb of 500 feet per minute
Gear
approximately.
up, lights out.
Airspeed is still climbing nicely.
Flaps up.
And there we can see a nice little city in front of us. The last time I flew at this airport that wasn't visible, so that's cool.
VTOL power. Setting meter power, 48 engines,
Almost at
6
700 feet there. There we go, we're gonna start our turn towards 130 degrees. Also keep an eye on our speeds.
VTOL
We
power
want a
set.
climb speed of about 165
City climb power.
knots. And here we are at 130 degrees, so level off here.
Checklist, please.
And this also seems like a good time to turn on our Gyropilot.
After takeoff checks complete.
And now we just monitor the VOR needle here. Once it starts moving towards the center, we can engage nav mode. And let's see on our navigation display. So that's what the aircraft would had us do instead of the actual flight plan that we are supposed to do. So glad we decided to do it this way instead. For some reason though, the needle is actually moving away from us, so that's a bit weird. But yeah, we'll see. We might just still have to use the GPS for this one. Oh, that's probably why. Yeah. I forgot to set the GPS source to the vlog mode, so what we were seeing on our navigation display there was actually, or not navigation display, our CDI I should say, was actually our relation to the magenta line on our GPS, which was not what we wanted to see, so we actually went through the VOR radial, but yeah, not too much. We are on course now, so I activated the leg to the wagon waypoint, so we are back on track. Still climbing at the right speed, as you can see. Flight engineer is taking care of our climb speed and the climb setting and all of that, so that's great. As you can see guys, we've almost reached our cruising altitude of 16,000 feet here, but we did run into a bit of a problem here. As you can see, the flight engineer can no longer increase the thrust levers to keep our engine power at 40 inches of manifold pressure. But that shouldn't be too much of an issue, since this aircraft comes equipped with so-called superchargers, which are located here on the overhead panel. And we are going to put them to use now to get our engine power back to 40 inches. So in order to do that, you need to do a couple of things. First, I'm going to reduce the climb rate just a tad, and I'm going to take over control from the artificial flight engineer. I'm going to reduce the thrust now to approximately 26 inches. And the reason why I do that is because we don't want our engines to blow up once we engage the superchargers. So we are going to start with the inboard ones. Let them stabilize for a second there. And then the outboard ones as well. There we go. Now we can set our engine power back to 40 inches. And then normally we should be able to increase our climb rate as well. But we've almost reached 16,000 feet, so there's not much climbing left for us. But yeah, thanks to those superchargers, we will now be able to go a bit faster during our cruise, despite the very low density at this airport. Altitude. There we go. 15,500 feet. It's already time to start leveling out our aircraft again. And it's getting a bit bumpy here over those mountains that we just saw out of our window. Nothing this aircraft can't handle though. So keep reducing the vertical speed, but not too much. The turbulence does play a role with the vertical speed here, which makes it a little bit more difficult to do this smoothly. And also make sure our altimeter is set correctly. Some words in English are just very hard to say quickly for me, for some reason. Almost at 16,000 feet there. And as you can see there, we had a little bit of an updraft, which increased the vertical speed again, which is not what we wanted. And there we go, engage altitude hold, and now the aircraft will remain at 16,000 feet for the duration of the flight. And something's very weird with the photo geometry right there. As you can see, that's how it's supposed to be there, but then we have these ugly ass patches there. But yeah, don't know what's up with that. It's not in every region that I fly through, just a couple of regions have very bad photo geometry for some reason. Don't know if that was a side effect of Sim Update 5, but I do hope they will fix this in the future update, which is Sim Update 6. Obviously, the World Update 6 that we just received isn't really meant to fix many bugs, but yeah, we'll just have to wait, I guess. And right now also seems like a good time to hand over the control of the throttles back to the flight engineer so he can do his cruise checks.
Cruise power, please. Setting cruise power.
And probably if we go ahead to the engine stress visualizer, oh, it's actually not that bad. So as you can see, we are in the yellow section, which is moderate stress range, and it's fluctuating, it seems, between yellow and orange. So that's obviously due to overboost, it seems, which is because of the superchargers, but that shouldn't be anything to worry about. I am going to switch to terrain radar though, just so we can keep an eye on the terrain around us. don't want to fly into the face of a mountain, obviously.
Cruise checks are complete.
It seems we should be okay. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that anyway. But for now though, I will cut the video here, edit the whole cruise phase out, apart from a couple of nice views of course. And then I will see you guys back at the top of descent. For the more interesting part of course, which is the approach into Cathay Airport. Really hope you will enjoy it as much as I do. I really enjoy flying into a bit more challenging airports like those. But yeah, I will see you guys in approximately a couple of hours. But for you it will be a matter of minutes. Anyway, see you guys at the top of descent. Welcome back guys, once again to the Saitek. Like always, I hope you enjoyed those couple of views there during the cruise phase. And like always, now it's time to descend towards our destination airport. And I've already done the calculations for our descent, and I've calculated a top of descent of 63 nautical miles away from the Charlie Hotel waypoint. So we are almost at that distance. We can already see the airport of Hong Kong on our navigation display here. So yeah, I'm going to pop up the screen right here so we can have a look at that while also looking down at our pedestal area here. And once we start the descent, I will also brief the approach and arrival with you guys, or I should say only approach, because we are not doing an arrival today. We are jumping straight to the initial approach fix for the approach itself. And there we have 63 nautical miles, so we are going to go ahead and start the descent. We want to aim for 1000 feet per minute, that's the rule of thumb in this aircraft. Like so. Now we can put away the GPS display again. To our right we can already see the mainland of China there. So we are getting quite close now. Yeah, now seems like a good time to approach, brief the approach with you guys. So here we have the first chart that we are going to use. So this is the IGS approach for runway 13, which IGS stands for Instrument Guidance System. So it's basically sort of ILS, but it doesn't guide you towards the runway exactly, but it just helps you to get in the general area of the runway, basically. So our first waypoint is this VOR right here, the CH VOR. After that we are going to travel towards Gulf, where we need to be above 6,000 feet. And that's also the altitude that I've used in my descent calculations. The reason why we couldn't immediately descend towards 4,500 feet is obviously because this terrain right here, we want to be in compliance with the altitude restrictions, so that's why I chose 6,000 feet. But once we pass through all of this terrain, or above this terrain I should say, we are going to start our descent towards 4,500 feet, where we will stay until we can intercept the glide slope towards the runway. That's basically the plan. I also need to set the frequency for the instrument guidance system, which is 111.9 it seems, so I'm quickly going to set that in the navigation radio. And we can also increase the descent rate a little bit since it's oh yeah, and that's probably why the descent rate has decreased, because we haven't done the descent checklist yet.
Setting 26 inches.
There we go. So like I said, 111.9 is the frequency that we want.
26 inches set.
And we are going to set that in both navigation radios. Like so, and then the course is 088 degrees.
On. Engine low is low. Low.
Like so. And there we go, descent checklist are complete, that's great. The superchargers have been turned off again. I've already set my flight recorder here, so I don't forget to record the approach so we can watch the replay, because that's something I tend to forget in most of my videos, but I've already set it here on my other monitor, so that's ready to go. And then hopefully I don't forget to turn it on so we can actually see how our approach goes. So yeah. Over there we already have the airport in sight there. Don't know if you guys can see it as well. You can sort of make out the runway there and the rest of the terminals, although the rest of the city still has to load in. So right now it seems like it's a pretty blank area, but it's actually a very populated residential area. So, but you'll see that in just a minute once we turn towards the airport again. Right now we still have to go all the way towards there, fly around those mountains and over the new Hong Kong airport as well, which is on that island over there. And then we will make our way toward this city here. And for those of you who are not really familiar with the approach into Kai Tak, there's basically a hill right in front of the runway. And on that hill they placed a giant checkerboard. And that's basically your visual cue to start your turn towards the runway, along with the runway lights, of course. But yeah, once we get close to that checkerboard, we will start our turn towards the runway. That's actually what real pilots in real life also use for their approach, to navigate through all of the buildings and such. And as you can see there, some of the buildings are already there now, and more are loading in every second. Now you can also have a better look at the airport there. Normally we shouldn't have problems with stopping the aircraft in time, it's a pretty long runway. So yeah, hopefully all goes well. I've only done this approach once, so still a bit challenging for me. Anyway, there's 6,000 feet, so we are going to start to level the aircraft out again. Press B also for the altimeter setting. And this will allow the aircraft to obviously slow down to about 160 knots, so we can extend our first flap setting. And again, it's a little bit bumpy over these hills and buildings. But slowly but surely the aircraft is coming down towards 6,000 feet. There we go, altitude hold, so now the aircraft will normally level out. I mean, look at that view. Such a densely populated area, it's really cool to see. It will be even more cooler when we fly through all of the buildings in a couple of moments. Yeah, let's see here how we are doing. Still 7 nautical miles away from the CHVOR. And then we still need to fly towards the Gulf waypoint, and after that we will start our turn towards our final approach. So we still have a bit of a ways to go. Aircraft is slowing down nicely, as you can see. So for now we can just admire the views a little bit. Let's see what the GPS does here now, because I did run into some issues during this flight with the GPS. But now it seems to be working just fine for the approach, so that's good. And right now we'll also start doing the in-range checklist.
Cooling turbine. Normal.
Can raise the tablet a little bit so it's easier to press all of the buttons. So we're now heading towards the Gulf waypoint.
Fuel tank selectors.
There we have the new Hong Kong Airport,
Hydraulic bypass valve.
which hasn't really loaded in yet, but
No smoking
that's
signs.
fine.
On. In-range checks complete.
So there we have the in-range checks. Still keeping an eye on the GPS so it doesn't do anything funky. And once we almost reach the Gulf waypoint, we'll start extending our flaps to 20. This will allow the aircraft to slow down to approximately 140 knots. And then once we descend to 4,500 feet, we'll use some flaps to keep the speed at 140 knots until we level off at our final altitude to intercept the glide slope. Oh, there we go. I'm going to start extending the flaps. So first flaps 10. I can jump straight to flaps 15 as well. And there we go, flaps 20 during the turn. And in a couple of moments we'll start our descent towards 4,500 feet. There we go, now seems like a good time to start the descent. Doesn't have to be quite as steep as our descent a couple of moments ago. Right around 500 to 700 feet per minute should be good, I think. And we'll also extend the flaps to 30 to allow the aircraft to stay at 140 knots. Whenever you extend the flaps, the aircraft has a tendency to level off again, which is not what we want, so oh, the aircraft is now turning towards final. We have almost reached our final altitude, but I'm going to switch to gyro mode now, so I can switch the navigation radio here to our VLOC. So right now we are above the glide slope, it seems, so nothing we can't correct. And I'm going to keep turning towards our course here and increase the descent rate a little bit. So there we go, I've engaged nav mode again. Now the aircraft will follow the approach course. Right now I can also engage glide slope, approach mode, sorry. So normally the aircraft should now follow the glide slope as well, and I'm gonna go ahead and do the before landing checklist. Now the co-pilot here will set the flaps to 20 again. I'm just going to set the flaps to 30 again and also 40. Go ahead and select the gear down, and we'll monitor the lights here. Gears down, 3 green. Right now I don't really know what the aircraft is doing with the approach mode. I think it's following it, but we'll see what the aircraft does.
2500 RPM set. Cal flaps +3 degrees. Cal flaps set. ADI. ADI off. ADI is off. Landing lights. Speed good. Extending lights. Lights extended and on.
Gonna decrease the descent rate a little bit, just so the aircraft can intercept the glide slope properly this time. And there we have the airport right in front of us. So it does seem that the aircraft is following the localizer, which is a good start. Now we just need to get it to follow the glide slope as well, which is proving to be a little bit trickier than I thought. Let's see what happens if we engage approach mode again. Oh, it seems that the aircraft is now following the glide slope, so that's good. Flaps are now full, and I've set the PMEP to about 110, which should be good for our approach. Aircraft is still following the approach as it should. Speed is maybe a little bit on the low side, but that's fine. Seems the speed is increasing, so that's great. So this seems like a good time to take over from the autopilot. And in a couple of moments the checkerboard should come into view. I believe we are supposed to aim between this building and this building right here. That should be our aiming point. And for now we'll just keep an eye on our glide slope and localizer. If all goes well, we shouldn't touch the throttles anymore during this approach. Speed is stable at between 120 and 100 knots, so that's great. Getting slightly to the right of the localizer, it seems. Right now it's a bit too early to rely solely on visual aids, so that's why we are still using the IGS system for now. Still don't have a visual with the checkerboard or anything. Let's see. Still a bit high on the glide slope, so we'll try to correct that. And there we go, now I have a visual with the checkerboard. Don't know if you guys can see it as well, but it's right over there on that hillside. So we'll just keep heading towards there. And in the meantime, try to avoid all of the buildings. So here we go, guys. I'm going to start my turn towards final, and we're going to follow these approach lights that we can see right in front of us here. And there we have the runway. As you can see, 4 white lights, which means we are a bit high. That's all fine. Two white, two red. There we go. And we can start reducing the thrust to idle. And there we go, we are down. Felt like a bit of a hard landing, but that's fine. And slowly start braking. We are perfectly on center line though, so that's great. Can see a military vessel over there. Pretty nice. And we'll go ahead and vacate the runway right over here. Go after landing checklist.
After landing checks complete.
Great. So now all that remains for us to do is to taxi towards one of the ramp areas there. Now we can get a really good look at the scenery here at Saitek. So as you can see, a lot of buildings. But yeah, that approach wasn't too bad, I think. I definitely had a better landing the last time I did it. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with a firm landing, of course. I would rather have a bit of a firmer landing than float halfway down the runway, only to have a hard landing anyway, so yeah. But the approach, I think, was not too bad. Maybe should have done the last turn a bit sharper. Kind of overshot the runway a little bit, but we did end up getting on center line again, so all things considered, sorry, I think it's a pretty good approach into Saitek. So now we have to keep an eye on the taxiways here, so we don't pass over the ramp area. Let's just park the aircraft right over there. Seems like a good spot. Stand 28 it seems. So there we have it, parking brake is set. I'm going to leave the engines running for just a bit longer, because otherwise the replay will be a bit broken. Yeah, speaking of the replay, I will stop the recording right now. I did in fact think about starting a recording, so that's great. So that means we can actually watch the replay this time. So for those of you who do not know how to use this plugin, which is free to download by the way on FlightSim.2, a link will be in the description below. Yeah, for those of you who do not know how to use this, you just press replay after you've recorded your flight. And we are going to fast forward a little bit, because as you can see there we have the new Hong Kong airport, which is just still quite a while from our destination. So right about here should be good. I'm going to put the recording application back on the other display. And we'll just take a look at this landing, shall we? So that did seem like a pretty rough landing to me. Let's watch it from another perspective as well. Let's see if this should be the right perspective. Yeah, not really that bad, but it could have been a bit softer, I think. Yeah, there we go, guys. There we have the replay. And we are back at the gate. We can set the parking brake again because that has been reset by the replay, and we can let the flight engineer do the parking checklist. So yeah, while he's doing that, his thing, that's going to be it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed flying to this airport again. I think it's a really nice airport, and I really recommend it to everyone to try out this approach. Yeah, if you want to do it, you can always download this beautiful scenery here that is completely free to download. And you can find it on flightsim.to. A link, like all the other links, will be in the description below. But yeah, for now, be sure to do a touch and go on that subscribe button along with the bell icon and all of that. And don't forget to like the video as well if you enjoyed it. It really helps out the channel a lot. And if you have any other ideas for future videos or anything like that, you are more than free to put any questions or anything in the comment section below. For now, I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.